Wild Girls Night turned into Threeway when I came home. He saw the shame on my face and did this. Hi, let's keep this intro short, okay? My name is Rebecca. I'm 27 and I think I just messed up my marriage permanently. To give you guys a bit of background, I have been married to my husband Peter, 30 male, for 7 years. We met on a blind date that my friend set us up on. Before Peter, this friend had set me up on dates before. They all went horribly, so I wasn't so eager to meet another douchebag. Peter wasn't a douchebag. He was the complete opposite, an absolute angel throughout dinner. It felt like the universe's way of apologizing for sending so many bad men my way. Peter had had his own share of bad dates too. We spent the night trading horror dating stories back and forth. Peter was so funny. I felt like I was going to develop a six-pack from laughing so hard. He had this way of making you feel at ease, of making you let your guard down. With Peter, there was no pretense. I saw him for what he was, an honest, funny guy who wanted someone to love. Less than an hour into the date, I realized that I wanted to be that person. We kissed that night. I never kiss on the first date. But Peter was special. We moved pretty fast after that. We went all the way after 3 dates, moved in with each other after 3 months, and got engaged 6 months after meeting. When you know, I guess. We actually didn't have a wedding. We eloped. It was great. We skipped town and went to Vegas. We got married with an Elvis impersonator as our officiant. Our only guests were the 92-year-old grandma who owned the venue and her fat pug. I wouldn't have had it any other way. We only told our friends after we got back from Vegas. Of course, they were thrilled for us and threw us a little party to celebrate. Peter has no contact with his family, and I don't have much family in the first place, so we didn't have to think of what our parents or cousins or whatever would think. Married life was great. Peter wasn't one of those husbands who controlled their wives and had her on a tight leash. No, Peter let me explore who I was with him by my side, supporting me. When I decided 2 years into our marriage that I wanted to quit my office job and start a media company, Peter was by my side. He quit his fancy tech job in Phoenix. He was looking for a reason to leave anyways, and we moved to Los Angeles. LA, baby, the land of opportunity. I'd never seen so many hopefuls in my life. Everyone there wanted to make it in some way. I was one of them. I was determined to grow roots in LA. Peter got another job pretty quickly. Unfortunately, it was lower pay and more hours than the one he had back in Phoenix. Peter never complained. He put his head down and worked hard for us. Somewhere along the road, 2 years after moving to Cali, we welcomed our daughter into the world. Rose, 3 female, was a blessing in so many ways. Immediately after having her, I got my first big client, Peter got promoted at work, and we were able to move into our dream home. Everything was going great. I couldn't have been happier. I had the cutest kid, the most supportive husband, and a fulfilling professional life. There was only one problem. I had very few friends. Sure, I had the people I worked with, but they were either my employees or my clients. Not really friend material if you think about it. All my friends were back in Arizona. The only friend I really had was Peter. And we all know it isn't really healthy for your partner to be your only friend. That's when I made the decision to get out of my shell and get friends. Peter was on my side from the start. Peter had his own friends. They were colleagues, guys from his dojo, or people he met at tech conferences, aka Nerd Center. But I didn't want to share friends with Peter like we did back home in Phoenix. Plus, I didn't really have much in common with any of them. Peter suggested that I sign up for something interesting happening in the city. It sounded like a great idea, so I immediately started looking for something. Eventually, I saw a poster for a community bake sale that was happening in the next neighborhood over. I love to bake, so I signed up before I even finished reading. The bake sale was on a Sunday. Sunday was when Pete hung out with his dojo buddies, so he couldn't come with me. Back then, it felt good, making friends without my husband to hold my hand. But now, I wish Peter would have come with me. He always had this strange way of sniffing out who wasn't a good person. He would have figured out that Perry was no good for me. I met Perry, 30, female, as she was handing out blueberry cupcakes to the kids for free. I set my lemon cupcakes down on her stall, and she turned to me with the brightest smile I've ever seen. She told me she was almost out of her blueberry cupcakes, so she was so happy I had more. I asked if we were supposed to be handing out the treats for free. She just gave me a cheeky smile and winked at me. I liked Perry. She was naughty. She was funny. She always had a hilarious story to tell. She'd been with her husband Richie for just 2 years, and they seemed happy with each other. We had similar interests. We both loved baking and horror movies and sharks. We also had similar jobs. She too owned a media company in charge of actors. She just wasn't as involved in the day-to-day of it as I was. It felt so good to have a friend. Perry and I hung out almost every day. We'd get coffee together. We'd go to Pilates together. We'd get lunch together. We went to the movies. We went to the arcade. We went to the aquarium. Even Peter felt that we were best friends. In a way, we were. My company had the biggest client of our lives a few weeks ago. His name is Becker, 25 male. Fake name, obviously. I'm not trying to get sued. He was a former child star back in the day. I think he worked for Disney and did a couple of big-budget films. Unfortunately, when he turned 18, his contracts ran out and he got dumped by his agency. No one offered him any more roles, and he kind of fell into drugs and alcohol addiction. Yeah, bleak stuff, I know. However, he cleaned up and got himself into rehab, and he's doing so much better. He's ready for a comeback, basically. He contacted my agency alongside 100 others, according to him. We were the only ones who responded. Becker came in for a meeting. I must admit, when I was told that Becker wanted to meet us, I just had the mental picture of the skinny 12-year-old kid that was on Disney. Logically, I know that he would have grown up a bit, but he'd grown up a lot. I mean, he was a man now. And he was handsome. That boyish face had given way to a beautiful man, like really beautiful. I worked in Hollywood. Seeing beautiful people was the norm. This industry was not kind to ugly people. I saw him and I just thought, wow, this guy is so much more handsome than anyone I'd ever met. Anyways, the meeting went great. Becker was charismatic and funny. I could see why he'd be famous. The role he was trying to get was very competitive. Big names wanted the role too. If Becker got this role, it would get him back into the rooms he wanted to be in. We agreed for him to join the agency and submitted him for the role. The next week was rough. Becker called every day, anxious about the role. My assistant tried his best to assure him, but after 3 days, he just gave Becker my number LOL. Becker called me multiple times a day. At first it was annoying, but after a while I started looking forward to the calls. Becker was super funny, even when he was anticipating the worst possible outcome. We grew closer over those 4 days. We'd spend hours on the phone. I'd talk about anything to distract him from the role. By the end of it, I considered him maybe not a friend, but someone fun to talk to. He got the role. Of course he did. He was a genius. He blew the casting directors away. Also, from a marketing perspective, they loved the idea of a disgraced actor getting a second chance. Becker called me. He was over the moon. I could literally hear his smile over the phone. Becker kept saying, "I owe you everything," over and over like I'd just given him a kidney. That kind of raw gratitude was sexy. I liked it, okay? Sue me. It made me feel powerful. It made me feel needed. It made me feel seen. Peter wasn't home. He was at one of those corporate retreats, up in Big Bear with his new manager, and a bunch of startup tech nerds. I'd forgotten until he texted me that morning, reminding me to water the orchids. I didn't text back. Perry texted me that we should celebrate. I agreed very quickly. This was such a success, and the relief I felt that Becker got the role was immense. I needed a celebration. A nice girls' night for me and Perry. When Perry came over, she was already buzzing before she even sat down on the couch. She had a bottle of wine in one hand and a vape pen in the other, and that grin she always wore when she was about to cause trouble. She told me that we were going to celebrate properly. She called it a worthy achievement. It felt so good to have someone know how hard it could get in this industry. She already had 2 glasses poured before I could say yes or no. I had so many reasons to say no. I hadn't eaten. I was tired. I had a new season of Black Mirror to catch up on. But something in me wanted to celebrate. I deserved this. And there was no better time for it. Peter was away. Rose was at the babysitter's house, just a night free from my family. Perry suggested we pick up Becker. She wanted to surprise him and have him join our celebration. I should have said no. I didn't. Becker answered the door shirtless, rubbing sleep out of his eyes. Mind you, it was 8 p.m., but whatever. I guess he's an old man disguised as a guy in his mid-20s. He looked like a painting someone would hang on a wall. He looked like a Greek statue. He looked like every childhood crush I had growing up all rolled into one. He grinned when he saw Perry, then looked at me and said, "Didn't think I'd see my favorite boss tonight." We all went back to mine. There was music and drinks and generous hits of Perry's vape. We spent the first few hours just laughing about anything. It felt like being 19 again, like being someone who wasn't me, someone lighter who was freer and made dumber decisions. We decided to play some drinking games. The first one we picked was Truth or Dare, except it turned into just dares after the second round. Perry dared Becker to kiss me. He did, without hesitation. It was quick with no tongue, just a firm press of our lips together, and then he was gone. He giggled. I swear to God, he actually giggled. It was light and playful. Not romantic at all, not yet. After he stopped giggling, there was only silence. Then he kissed me again. And this time, the kiss wasn't light at all. It lingered. His hand brushed my face like he was checking to see if I'd break. I didn't. Next thing I knew, Becker was kissing Perry. Then me again. The three of us collapsed on the couch, tearing off our clothes. I won't romanticize it. It was messy, it was impulsive, and it wasn't the best I've ever had, but it was also weirdly soft. No one rushed. It wasn't porn. It wasn't a power play. It was like jumping into a cold plunge after being in a sauna. It shocked my entire nervous system. It felt like I was floating and falling at the same time. I remember Perry laughing. I remember Becker's hands, rough but careful. I remember thinking that this couldn't possibly be happening, but it felt so easy, like I'd done this before. For context, I hadn't. One thing I didn't think about was my family. I wasn't thinking of Peter. I wasn't thinking of Rose. I was only thinking of my pleasure. It didn't feel like betrayal at the moment. I fell asleep on the floor, pressed between them. When I woke up, my mouth tasted like tequila. My back ached. The room smelled like wine and Perry's perfume. Becker was still asleep on the floor, face pressed against my rug. Perry was scrolling through her phone like it was just another Tuesday. She looked at me and winked. I ran into the bathroom and cried in the shower before scrubbing my skin as hard as I could. It didn't help get that icky feeling off my skin. By the time I got out of the shower, both Perry and Becker were gone. I couldn't care less. In fact, I wanted them gone. Peter was coming home soon, and I couldn't have evidence that they were here. I cleaned as much as I could, but 2 hours later, Peter texted me to let me know that he had picked our daughter up from the babysitter and was 5 minutes away. In a panic, I shoved the rest of the stuff I hadn't cleaned under our couch and just prayed he wouldn't notice. I dumped the 3 wine glasses in the sink. I shoved Perry's earrings that she had forgotten into my pocket. As I heard Peter's car pull into our driveway, I said another prayer to whoever was up there. Peter walked in hand with Rose. Rose immediately ran up to me and hugged me. For a minute, as I hugged my daughter, I forgot how hard my heart was beating. When she ran off to play, I remembered again. Peter set his bag down and looked at me. He cocked his head to the side and looked at me weird. He asked if everything was all right. I nodded. Peter glanced under the couch. Great. He gave a dry laugh. What? Did you have a party without me? And I had no answer. The shame must have shown on my face. I watched as his face fell slowly. Peter was always great at putting things together. It's what made him a great tech guy. It's what made him a great dad. I had always been grateful for that. At that moment, I really wished he was a little stupider. That night, he asked me very calmly to tell me the truth. He was weirdly chill. He didn't raise his voice. He just sat across the room and stared at the wall as I told him all about Perry and Becker and the night we had. He slept in the guest room with the door locked. I stayed up all night, waiting for him to come back to our room. He didn't. The next morning they were gone, both Peter and Rose. He left a long text for me. He had taken Rose to a motel out of town. They were going to stay there until Peter could make a decision. He said he needed time to think. He said it might be temporary. Said he needed space. He said that if Rose stayed in the house, she would pick up on the tension. He was right, of course, but it still hurt. He said I should give him a week. That gave me some hope. I feel that I can save my marriage in some way. That's why I came on here. I may have messed up big time, but it seems Peter hasn't made up his mind yet. I could still convince him that this was a one-time mistake and it would never happen again. What's the best way to do this? Any suggestions you guys have, I'm willing to hear out. Commenter, you seem to have boundary issues, girl, and jail. I don't have advice for you, but I do feel the need to tell you that sleeping with your client isn't really a good idea. Commenter 2, man, I hope he divorces you. Update, 6 months later. Hi guys, I'm back. I know. Bad news for the people who sent me death threats over my last post. Happy to report that I'm still alive. I'm here to tell you guys what has happened since I last posted. Peter has filed for divorce. He wants full custody. When the email came in, I felt numb at first. I kept rereading the polite words to try and get some feeling in me. I couldn't. I just went about my day as usual. The sadness only came later, when I became so aware of how quiet the house was. I felt something break inside me. I called Perry 20 times. No answer. Texted Becker. Got nothing. I broke and called Peter. It went straight to voicemail. 2 days later, Becker came by the office. He wouldn't look me in the eye, which told me everything I needed to know. He said he was grateful for what I'd done, but he'd gotten a better offer. Another agency had offered him a spot, and he was going to take it. I nodded and tried to be supportive, but my throat burned. I couldn't shake the feeling that he left because of the Threeway. That same afternoon, my worst fear came true. My assistant emailed me. A Twitter thread had been made accusing me of misconduct, inappropriate relations with a client, and abuse of position. All the buzzwords. I immediately jumped into the comments to defend myself. I shouldn't have. Whoever this anonymous Twitter user was, they had evidence. Photos, screenshots, a video. Nothing graphic, but enough to ruin me. Perry had filmed it. She'd set up her phone, camera angled, just so she wasn't shown. I hadn't noticed. But Becker had it, and he'd shared it with Peter, with my assistant, maybe more. The board demanded a meeting. I was voted out of my own company the next day, effective immediately. I called Perry again, furious. She finally picked up. She let me rant and curse at her for 10 minutes straight. Only when I finally took a break to breathe, I heard her let out a little laugh. She told me that Becker was supposed to be her client. She told me she felt cheated out of the biggest deal of her career, as if it's my fault that my company responded and hers didn't. She told me she planned everything as some sort of sick revenge. The day after the Threeway, she managed to convince Becker that what happened between us was inappropriate, since I was technically his boss. Becker took it from there. Before I could get another word in, she hung up. That was the last time I ever heard her voice. Becker's career exploded. He booked another role, then another, then a Netflix series. His publicist crafted this whole redemption arc. A former child star beats addiction, makes a comeback, gets manipulated into sleeping with his boss, and is brave enough to speak up about it. He started dating some indie darling. He became famous enough to have a stylist. I feel I do have to state again that I did not manipulate anyone into doing anything. I will admit that I may have abused my position, but manipulation? Come on now, that's a stretch. Peter got everything he asked for. The house, the car, Rose. He didn't drag me through the mud. He didn't need to. The judge took one look at the evidence and ruled in his favor. She said I was obviously unstable and emotionally compromised. I wasn't even allowed visitation until I could prove that I had become a better person. I didn't fight it. I didn't have the strength. Now I live in Phoenix again, in a 1-bedroom over a laundromat that smells like soap and sadness. I freelance. I ghostwrite articles for parenting blogs. I edit videos for TikTokers who pretend their lives are perfect. I haven't seen Rose in months. I send gifts. I get thank you texts from Peter's sister, who he is now in contact with again. Not from him. Sometimes I think about driving out to see her just to catch a glimpse. I miss her so much I don't know what to do with it. I cry a lot these days just thinking of how differently my life could have been if I never met Perry, if I never met Becker, if that night never happened. As for Perry, she's in New York now, last I heard, living it up with Richie. He's still oblivious. He has no idea she cheated on him. I tried to tell him, but he blocked me on everything he could. I guess he'll never know then. Perry managed to get away with that. She still has her company. Becker's her star client. That was the better offer he got. Sometimes I even Google her. I don't know why. My life has changed completely. I used to wake up with Peter's arm around me, Rose kicking against my stomach in our too-small bed, and think, this is everything I ever wanted. Obviously, I don't have that anymore. My entire family is gone. My friends in Phoenix hate me. They pretend I don't exist, basically, even those that were my friends before they were Peter's. It's a lonely life, I won't lie. My reputation is shot. I had to delete my Twitter and Instagram accounts because of the massive hate I was getting. I was getting threats against me every day. They made me into some sort of big inside joke. I hated it. I had to protect my mental health. I go to therapy now, not because I want to, but because if the judge sees I'm making an effort to better myself, I might get visitation rights soon. I don't drink anymore. I don't go out. I don't even bake. Just seeing the kitchen in my apartment makes me feel sick. But I refuse to give up. I'm going to get over this eventually. I'm not going to let a stupid mistake define who I am. I've set a plan in motion. In the next 6 months, I want to get another business up and running again. I want to move out of this dump. I want to get to see my daughter again. And finally, I want to prove to Peter that I love him and want to get back together. I'm not giving up on him. Wish me luck, guys. Bye. Commenter, please leave that man alone. Let him rest, Mal.